scammers will always adapt, right? Scammers will always find new ways. But consider multi-level marketing is the only scam that has stayed the exact same since the very beginning with no need to adapt because it's legal. You actually have a better chance of success in a no product Ponzi scheme than an actual product-based MLM. I'm Marco. My YouTube channel is Always Marco, and I'm most known for my series Infiltrating a Pyramid Scheme, where I go into a multi-level marketing company or MLM company's meetings and show what goes on the inside. And the first time I did this,
well, what's an MLM?
An MLM is a multi-level marketing company. It's basically a company where you're incentivized to recruit people who then recruit people who then recruit people. And it is essentially a pyramid scheme in disguise because these companies have products or services that you have to buy as a starter pack when you sign up with the company. And the company reports those signups as retail sales of the product when really it's the recruiting engine that is actually generating these sales.
Okay. And so on your channel, you go into, you actually find MLMs, and then you kind of expose them.
Sure. Yeah. I mean,
how do you do that?
Basically, I go in there with a hidden camera or just very sneaky with my phone. I have a camera that's not much bigger than this. It's a pen, and the lens is right here by where you would click the pen. And so I can just sort of put that in the breast pocket if I'm wearing a suit jacket and record everything. And it's
Is that
interesting.
Connected to anything?
Nope, like it has a micro SD card inside. So you open up the pen like so, and then there's a little slot in the cap that you can put the SD card, and then the clicker on the pen is actually the recording button.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's one of them Chinese Amazon products. The camera quality isn't great, but in terms of covert gear, it works.
Right. So you go in and you record them, and what, like, just how overt they are, and then you just kind of like unpack what's really happening.
Right. So the thing that you always see in these multi-level marketing meetings when you go there to get recruited is people in the company will tell you a rags to riches story and then basically brag about how this company changed their life and now they're making so much money. And in some cases, they're millionaires or 10x millionaires. And when you compare these claims to the income disclosure of any MLM company that I've researched, those income disclosures show you that actually 99% of people in the company lose money, which means that these income claims and these wealth promises are actually fraudulent, fake, false advertising earnings claims.
Well, the people at the top, they're making their money off of selling you on selling your friends and your family, and those friends and family selling their friends and family. And so it's all getting trickled up. So it's only one or two people at the very top making anything. Everybody else was basically losing.
Totally. So the number that I find when I actually dissect the income disclosures of these companies is 99.6% loss rates. Right. So if there was 100 people in a company, yeah, we'd be looking at actually less than one person making that kind of money. So yeah, one person. And you could extrapolate that number out. You know, if there's 1,000 people in the company, 990, you get me.
Right. So has anything ever happened? Like they've caught you at the pen, or or nothing like that? Or
the very first time I did this was with a company called World Financial Group. And it's actually the first MLM company that I was ever exposed to when I was 19 years old, but that's a story I'll tell later on.
Right.
And they called the police on me, and the police told me to get out of there. And they also sent me a cease and desist letter after I put the video out because they were not happy with the publicity, of course. And there's always threats of legal action. There is some, I have had legal action taken against me that I still am not able to speak on.
Right.
But yeah, it's definitely a exciting venture. I'll say that.
People reach out to you and stuff like after you've posted videos and
I've had literally countless thousands of people who have reached out to me and told me, even just after that first video, how they had a friend or relative that was caught up in the same scam, and how my videos are helping to keep people from joining in the first place, or helping people to leave if they've been in it for a while. And after that happened, I just realized there was such a huge need for this type of exposure and this type of education to the public on multi-level marketing. It's pretty sparse what's available out there. So that sort of led me down this path that I'm on now. My best friend from high school had told me that he started a business. And so he said, man, you got to come check this business out. I'm a financial advisor now. I'm a licensed financial advisor. I'm thinking, oh, awesome. Like my friend, mind you, my best friend, a little bit of background on him. He was the smartest guy I knew in high school. Like I would rely on him to cheat off his homework so that I could pass math. Like even during a test, he would openly show me his answers. Like he was
right.
very smart, especially when it came to numbers. Like I remember that. And so he told me he's a financial advisor. And I thought, you know what? He is out of here. Like he is going to be so successful because this is his forte, So he
Had he been
invites
studying that?
that's what he said. He said he's a financial advisor now. And to me, that totally clicked because I was like, man, he was already so good with numbers. I'm not surprised that, a year out of high school, he's doing something like this. So he invites me to his office for a presentation about how maybe I can also make some money. And like, mind you, he's my best friend. To say that I trust him is an understatement. And to say that I value his judgment when it comes to money and numbers, is
Right.
also an understatement. So he gives me the address of this place. I don't have a name of a building. I just have an address, and he's going to be there. I go there. I walk in. There's a lot of people. The gentleman greets me at the door. Hey, how are you? What's your name? Marco. Are you an agent here? I said, no. I just got invited. Like it felt very official, very legit. Like I was out of my depth. I was in over my head. Like I felt really like, underdressed.
Yeah.
But not because I was even underdressed, but just because I felt like imposter syndrome even being here, right? I was like, oh, I don't belong. Like this is too professional for me. And I go in there and there's a bunch of people, regular looking people sitting in chairs in front of a, board waiting to be presented to. And then I see my friend. He's wearing a suit. All his other coworkers there are wearing suits. I'm thinking, oh my God, my friend has like made it. Like this is sick. And he's like, yeah, man, this is gonna be so sick. Like, check it out. Do. So I sit down. One guy goes up, starts speaking. He tells us a story of how it's basically a rags to riches story. Everyone claps. Another guy goes up, tells a rags to riches story. This guy also includes a little bit of rudimentary financial advice. Did you know that most people can't afford to cover even a $400 emergency? Did you know that most people don't have $1,000 in their savings? Do you know about the power of compound interest? Do you know about the rule of 72? Everyone claps. The next guy goes up. And each time the previous speaker says, this next guy who's going to come speak to you is way sicker than me. And then so now the final boss goes up there and he just butters us up. The final guy goes up now and he just sells it. Our agents go on yacht trips. They go to amazing locations. We go to Bora Bora. We do this, we do that. We go on jets. We drive Lambos. We do that. And I'm thinking, oh, something felt wrong within me. And while I'm sitting there listening to this, I pulled out my phone and I'm Googling the name of this company, which they said was World Financial Group. And I'm Googling and I just immediately start seeing a flood of, don't attend this. It's a scam. It's a pyramid scheme. They charged my credit card after I had canceled, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm like, fuck. I didn't know what a pyramid scheme was. I didn't know what an MLM was. I just knew my friend had been duped. And at the end of that meeting, my friend came up to me with a look on his face like I had never seen before. It was this look of intensity, like, so when are you going to sign up? So did you like it? When are you going to sign up? And it was like, it wasn't him. It wasn't him. And it scared me. And I was like, you know, yeah, I got to get, made some excuse. I didn't sign the paper that they, because they handed me this paper. Okay, when can we call you? When are you going to come back to the office to sign up? You know what I mean? And it's like, I don't even remember how I got myself out of that high pressure situation. And so I thought, man, I need to talk to my friend. So when I got home later that night, he texted me and, asked me, what did you think of it? And I called him. And at the time I thought I was doing the right thing and saying the right thing. I said to him, hey, look, man, I care about you and I want to see you succeed. I just don't want to see you get hurt. And I looked online and it said this company is a pyramid scheme. And he just flipped. You're just like everyone else. They told me you would say that. You don't believe. Do. And that was the end of our friendship.
Really?
That was the end of our friendship because after that, he didn't want to have anything to do with me. And this really affected me. And that was the seed. So that was only in 2015. I didn't start my YouTube channel till 2019. So what happened in those years in between? In those years in between, I was just doing regular people shit. I worked at restaurants. I worked at a casino. And then in 2018, my best friend who I met around that same time that I lost my old best friend, my current best friend, he started a YouTube channel. He was posting videos on Facebook. Both of us had always posted like silly little gag videos on Facebook, right?
Right.
He started posting these videos on YouTube, and one of them just took off, and it went really big on Reddit, was how it went viral. And then a big Facebook page posted it, and then it got on the YouTube algorithm, and it just hit like millions of views. And so very rapidly, my best friend became like a big YouTuber and started making money from this. And so from 2018 to 2019, I was just working with him on his channel, helping him with his videos and doing his live streams with him. Shout out to my best friend, Philip Solo TV. His video that went viral was eating at the worst reviewed restaurant in my city. And it started this like trend of every YouTuber going and eating the worst reviewed type of cuisine, worst reviewed Chinese, worst reviewed Italian, worst reviewed whatever. And it was like, a sort of Fear Factor type gross,
Right.
funny video to do. So it was easily repeatable. Everybody copied it, right? Everybody hopped on the wave. So in the summer of 2019, Philip said that he was going to move to Vancouver. I lived in Edmonton. I couldn't afford to move to Vancouver. I was living in the basement of my aunt's house where she had, like, my aunt and uncle had custom built the house to have a basement suite so that my grandma could come live with them. When she was there, she would usually spend half her time back home in Lebanon and then half the year back home. So they had this like basement suite set up for her. So I was living in the basement suite while my grandma was in Lebanon because I was like trying to save some money and nothing was guaranteed. So anyways, Philip says he's going to move to Vancouver. So if he moves to Vancouver, I can't really live stream with him anymore. And I can't really do his videos with him anymore. So I'm going to need to figure something out. And over this past year of just doing YouTube, I knew I didn't want to go back and get a job again.
Right.
So I decided I'll start my own channel. He started it with a selfie stick and his iPhone. No reason I can't do the same thing. So I wrote down a list of ideas that I thought would be funny YouTube videos. And the fourth idea on the list was called Join a Pyramid Scheme. And initially, I wanted to make the video about the company Amway because when I Googled pyramid scheme, that's what I kept coming across was Amway. So I talked to a couple people from Amway, but the video wasn't quite, the footage I was getting just wasn't really anything. And then I remembered back in 2015, this company, World Financial Group. And I thought, okay, there's more of a story here already because I know a bit about this. I remember what it was like going to that meeting. If I could get a camera inside one of those presentations where everyone's clapping and cheering and promising everyone that they're going to make millions of dollars, that could be a video. So I just called one of those offices. Hey, can I come? Secretly recorded the whole thing. And it sort of happened by accident that now I am this anti-MLM creator, because the first video I made, I was just sort of looking to point out how goofy the whole thing was. And then I didn't realize that it's actually it's a much more sinister and widespread fraud that is being perpetuated in society today and has been perpetuated for decades. And, as I've learned more, I've realized that multi-level marketing is the longest standing and biggest scam that exists.
Whatever happened to your buddy, your original buddy? Like, did you know what the fallout from that was? Because I mean, let's face it, only the people at the top of these MLMs, they're the only ones who ever really make any money.
Yes. So I hadn't really talked to him since that time. Like I said, it ruined our friendship. In 2019, 4 years later, after I put the video about World Financial Group out, he sends me a message on Facebook. I think I still have it here. Let me see.
He built some of the nation's largest banks out of an estimated $55 million because $50 million wasn't enough and $60 million seemed excessive. He is the most interesting man in the world.
I don't typically commit crimes, but when I do, it's bank fraud. Stay greedy, my friends.
Support the channel. Join Matthew Cox's Patreon.
Within like a couple days of me posting the video, it started to gain traction. It had like 100,000 views, I think, in the first 24 hours. And this was only my 4th YouTube video ever. So it was huge for me. And my original friend messaged me and he said, "Your video is grossly misconstructed. I get it. You want to gain a following, but do you not have better ideas? I'm no longer associated with WFG, and still your statements made me cringe. I made tangible profits in my run with WFG and also added value to my finances as well as others. Plus, you lied to your viewers. Clout chasing." So he was not happy. And you know what I found really interesting was he wasn't even in the company anymore and he was defending it. And I thought, well, if it was such a good opportunity, why didn't you stick with it? And he said, "I left because it wasn't a career choice I wanted to make."
So, so where did he go somewhere else? Is he still? It sounds to me like somebody who's.
After that, I believe he was just working with his dad, doing like construction work, like labor work with his dad. And you know what I found as I went on and I learned more about exactly how these companies perpetuate their scams, I learned that minority communities are actually the most targeted because these companies thrive on people's vulnerabilities. They need you to need them. If you're struggling, if you're a single mom, if you've just lost somebody, if you're just getting out of high school, you don't know what to do with your life, but you know you want to make a bunch of money. If you're an immigrant and you have immigrant parents and you want to give a better life to them, and all of these things that I learned about, I realized like why my friend was such a perfect target for them, because he was Mexican, and the Mexican community is, especially when it comes to like Herbalife, there's a whole documentary called Betting on Zero about how Herbalife really targets Hispanic communities. And my friend was Mexican. And I think before World Financial Group, he was in Herbalife because we would hang out and he'd be showing up with these protein bars and things like that. And he never said Herbalife, but it was either Amway or Herbalife that he was getting these products from. And I just realized, oh, my friend was actually like predisposed to be susceptible to this type of scam. And that's what it is. It is a scam. So yeah.
Well, I don't understand. He would rather work construction than drive a Lamborghini.
Well, that's the thing, is they delude people so effectively to the point where even if you lose money, you are brainwashed essentially from that very first meeting onward into believing that any failure was your fault.
It was your fault. Yeah.
However, the numbers show across every multi-level marketing company that 99% of people fail. And the setup of these companies makes it so that you are predetermined to fail. There is no MLM company, as far as I know, that exists today that doesn't have a 99% failure rate. And this is fucked up to say, but the 99% failure rate of an MLM company is actually a 99% success rate. If 99% of people fail, it means the system is working perfectly, because the losses of the 99% are the profits of the
Or the
one.
top. Yeah. I was going to say, not just failure, but I mean, isn't there a massive percentage of them that actually people that enter into them lose money? Not that they break even or don't make the money they thought they were going to make. They actually lose money because they buy products that they
Yes.
then can't really sell.
Right. So, for example, I was looking, and I'll just make this easy for the audience to understand without me pulling up graphs and things like that. I was looking at an income disclosure for a multi-level marketing company the other day, and it says, on average, we paid our representatives $8,000 for the year. Part-time and full-time, this was just an average. But the calculation of $8,000 a year, which is, I mean, how much is that a month?
Yeah.
It's not a lot. It's not a
Right.
lot. You'd make more money working at McDonald's, frankly,
Right.
even with that number. But you have to consider that number doesn't include the expenses paid by the people who joined. It doesn't include their startup kit that they bought,
No,
which can
that's
be
why they said
500.
they paid.
They paid.
They did
So
pay.
they absolutely paid. And
Right.
they pay monthly as well for their the privileges to the most of these companies have like a website where there's a representative portal or like an app that you need to pay for. It's just a fee essentially. It doesn't calculate that. It doesn't calculate the cost of their time, the time that you put into prospecting people, messaging friends and family, going to these meetings, logging on to Zoom. That's all unpaid work.
Right. Plus,
Your
a lot of them have product
that if you don't sell, sometimes it can expire. If you're selling clothes, it won't expire. But if you're selling shampoo or food items, those are perishable, right? Those expire. So you either have to sell those, or you take the loss on it, or you eat it yourself. There's a phenomenon in multi-level marketing called inventory loading, which there's a Amazon Prime documentary called Lula Rich, which shows this really well. These women were selling leggings and clothing items for their multi-level marketing company. And each month they needed to purchase more of the clothing to maintain their rank in the company. So because they were buying more than they were selling, they end up with garages and basements and guest rooms full of this stuff. And you can go on, Craigslist or eBay and find a ton of unsold MLM products just being sold for dirt cheap because of this. But going back to the income disclosure thing. So 8,000 people. So people on average are being paid, let's say $8,000 a year. It doesn't take into account people's expenses, financial expenses and time expenses. It
Right.
also doesn't include, it also doesn't take into account that this average is being boosted greatly by the people at the top of the company who do make a lot of money. Their incomes, their salaries are bringing up the total average.
Right.
So if you get rid of those people who are there every year, they're there year after year getting that check. If you get rid of those people, then you see that the $8,000 a year actually becomes much, much lower. And then you factor in the expenses. Now the $8,000 a year becomes much, much, much lower. Then consider the high attrition rates in multi-level marketing companies. Most people are losing money, which means most people don't stay from one year to the next, which means that's why they're constantly recruiting, because they need new people to replace the old people. And in an income disclosure, it only shows the finances for 1 year. So it also isn't taking into account how the people that are being reported in the income disclosure of this year, it doesn't really show that those are all mostly new people who are not going to be here next year. So when you factor in all of these things, you realize, we have a 99% or more loss rate. I think 99.6% is the actual number. And just to give people a frame of reference, you have better odds playing blackjack at a casino. You have better odds making it to the NFL or the NBA. You have better odds making a living just begging for change on the street.
People still play the lottery.
People do still play the lottery. However, I hear a lot of these sort of these MLM recruiters are very skilled in linguistic tactics, and they almost sort of speak in riddles too. It's like a dance. Like I might say something like 99% of people lose money. That's one of their favorite things to rebut, because then they say, well, Marco, you do YouTube. More than 99% of people who make YouTube videos don't make any money. Sounds logical, right? Sounds like a good argument. Sounds like a good rebuttal. Oh, damn. So then is YouTube not legit either? But then you don't consider, I also don't have to pay to upload YouTube videos. I also don't have to recruit other YouTubers who make videos in order to make money on YouTube. So there's all these false equivalences that they make. People do still play the lottery. You're right, Matt, but you don't have to recruit people to play the lottery.
Right. Well, I'm just saying that, that what I was saying was, despite the fact that you have almost no chance of winning the lottery, people still play. You could tell people all those statistics, but like you said, most of these people are just predisposed to, think that they're going to, they don't think of it as a get rich quick scheme. They think that they're special and that they can do this, and if it worked for him, it'll work for me.
Yes.
And they're not really laying out all of the things that are happening and realizing it's a scam. They're just saying that guy's got a Lamborghini and he said, all I have to do is sell a little bit of product and convince other people to sell it. And that seems reasonable. Totally. And I'll make a whole bunch of money. But the truth is, you just, first of all, it's skeezy going to all your friends and family and trying to get them to buy $1,000 of mouthwash or shampoo or something, and have them sell it so you can make money off of them. And, and then of course the products themselves, it's always like, okay, really, it's just a knockoff product. It's a white label for something I can buy. Instead of for $10, I can go buy it for $6. So one, it's jacked up. I'm not even getting a good deal on the product. Like just across the board, it's just they're always seem jacked up to me. Like it's always not like there's no, unless you started the MLM, there's just no good position to be in the organization.
Yeah, so there's a lot of layers to what you just said right there. I mean, first of all, with the recruiters and people thinking they're special, that's the whole point of the recruiters in your very first exposure to the company, going up there and saying, I was born on a dirt floor in Mexico and I had nothing and I came here with $3 and I had to sell gum on the corner. And you know what? If I can do this, you can do this. And within 6 months of this company, my life totally changed and I started making $10,000 a month. Clap, 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 clap. If you're in the first world, like me or my friend was, you might think, oh, fuck, if he could do it, I could do it. So, I mean, that right there, why am I on Inside True Crime with Matt Cox? Because that actually does constitute crime. To have an income disclosure that shows 99% of people lose money, but to get people hooked into the idea of joining off the strength of you making a lot of money or that you could make a lot of money, it's just blatant false advertising. It's a misleading income claim. That is crime. And the FTC says as much. And these companies own internal documents. These companies all have social media guidelines, for example, which are there. They don't follow them, of course, but they exist just so that the company can be like, we've done our due diligence. All of their internal documents say that you're not allowed to say things like you made X amount of dollars. You're not allowed to post a Lambo, a Rolex, a stack of cash. But they all do this anyways because their business absolutely depends on, romanticizing the idea of material wealth to people. So there's that. The next thing that you mentioned was the products themselves. No, sorry. The next thing that you mentioned was it's skeezy to have to pitch it to your family. Well, that's another one of the costs that is basically impossible to calculate. When a company or a person is brought before a judiciary body, a jury, a regulatory board, whatever, that body is looking to determine losses in the form of finances or property. How do you quantify emotional loss? How do you quantify the harm done to your network of friends and family and the bridges you burned because they put distance between you and them because you're just pitching them on an opportunity every time you talk to them, and you are resenting them because they're a dream stealer and they don't believe in your vision and they don't believe in you and they're a hater. What some of these relationships are irreparable. I've to this day, my friend and I are still no longer friends.
Right.
How do you quantify that? How do you put someone's grief on a graph and hold it up to the next person and say, I lost this much in my heart? You can't. And that's another element of it that I really want to shed a light on in my videos, is that it's not just about financial fraud. It is about destroying people's relationships, the fabric of people's identities, the thing that they rely on the most, the thing that is the most important in most people's lives, their family, their friends, their identities, you know. That's why I say it is the most rampant. It's the most rampant fraud. And then the last thing that you talked about was the products themselves. These companies claim to be direct selling companies, network marketing companies. And as a matter of fact, the regulatory committee that watches over all of these companies is called the DSA, the Direct Selling Association. But with the exception of a couple, literally single digits companies, every one of the companies in the DSA is actually a multi-level marketing company. And the companies rely on mixing up the language. Direct selling, network marketing, multi-level marketing. They use these terms interchangeably, even though those are not the same thing, to confuse you further. It's sort of like, I use this analogy, when someone says, can you give me a Kleenex? Can I get a Kleenex? You know what they mean. But Kleenex is actually the brand name of the company that makes a multitude of products. It's called a tissue, but nobody says, let me get a tissue. People say, you know, the term became so popular that it's synonymous with tissue, the word Kleenex, right? And so these MLM recruiters use words like network marketing. You're just marketing to your network. Everybody does that. YouTubers sell their merchandise to their subscribers. That's their network. They're network marketing. Restaurants, they advertise to people in their community. That's a network. They're network marketing. It's a false equivalence because that's a one and done. If I advertise to you, if I'm a YouTuber and I advertise my merch to you, you buy it, it's done. There's no incentive for you to make money. And you're also, there's also no point or no element of like you recruiting other people to buy it, or you signing up under me and paying me to then go sell my merch to other people who then sign up other people to go sell my merch to other people. So that is a blatant misdirection. And then as it pertains to the products themselves, you're right. It's usually just crap that you could get anywhere else for cheaper. Then there's another layer, which is the idea of direct selling. Matt, I'm going to ask you, and everybody at home, ask yourself this. When was the last time that you needed to contact a person and go meet up with them in order to buy a thing? Just think about it for a moment. With the exception of hard drugs and prostitution, I cannot think of anything today that requires that type of sales method. We have Amazon, we have Walmart on every corner. Direct selling, the idea of like door-to-door, whatever selling, is akin to the idea of like the milkman coming to your house or Blockbuster. These are just things that went away because we have now more efficient tools. We have technology that makes them unnecessary. And direct selling, this method that we're talking about of making sales this way, accounts for less than 1% of all sales, retail sales made in North America. So where are all these direct sellers? You know, the MLM industry makes billions of dollars a year. They have millions of people each year involved in this direct selling, as they say. Where are they? Where are they? Somebody that I know is in an MLM. They've recruited 10 other people. Wouldn't I be getting a knock at my door every day with somebody trying to sell me lotions and potions and insurance? Where are they?
Yeah.
So I know I said a lot there, but it's necessary to unpack these different layers, because no matter what element, no matter what angle you take to dissect multi-level marketing, no matter how you slice it, it is fraudulent.
Right. Well, I was thinking to the psychology behind it. I'll give you an example. When I used to disclose to people, right? So I just, you know, when you get a mortgage in the US, you have to disclose to your customer. You have to explain all the different facets of the mortgage. So I would go and I would explain, okay, well, your interest rate's going to be, you know, 8%. And they would say 8%. And oh my gosh. And I'd say, well, you know, you have some dings on your credit. You were 30 days late, you know, 18 months ago on this bill, 60 days late on this bill. Your credit score isn't great. And they were like, right. And I'd say, well, here's the thing. Those are also pretty old and they're moving away from you and they will fall off or get past the 2 and 3 year mark. So you can always refinance at that time. And so they're like, yeah, you're right. But this is what you ask them. They'll say that's expensive, but of course that's not my fault. It's expensive. I did not pay your credit card. I did not pay your car payment, you know, for 60 days. So that's not my fault. But I can refinance it provided you're going to repair your credit. Like you're going to keep paying things. You've been paying things well for the last few months. Do you plan on continuing to pay things well? What are they going to say? Yes, of course I am going to. What are they going to say? No, I'm a scumbag. I always pay late. I've always done it. I will always do it. No, they're going to say, of course I'm going to pay. And then I say, well, you plan on paying this mortgage on time for the next 3 years, next year and a half at least? Of course, Matt, of course I do. So I'm asking you questions that you cannot say no to. Well, if you continue to pay your credit cards, and you start paying this mortgage for the next year, I can refinance your house at that time for a lower interest rate. Now the truth, and they go, and of course they're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. And it does make sense. But the truth is, I know the likelihood they're going to continue to pay their bills on time is unlikely. I know this because their rent was $800 and their water bill was $50 and their electric was $50. And I just put them into a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house where their new mortgage payment is $1,200 and their water is going to be more expensive. Their electric's going to be more expensive and they've got a homeowners association. So at $800, you couldn't make your bills. You're damn sure not going to be able to make it at $1,600 or $1,700. So one, you know that, I know that going in, but I also know that they can't say no to any of those questions. So I get them to agree to the higher interest rate because they have no rebuttal. That doesn't make them look bad. The second thing is then when I would get to the point where the interest rate it's a variable rate mortgage, it's going to vary. It's going to go up and down. They say, hey, wait a second. This is an ARM product, right? This says that it's not a fixed rate fixed rate payment. And I say, well, it actually is a fixed rate payment for 2 years. But like we just said, we're going to refinance your house in a year. So you don't have to worry about it adjusting every month or so, because you just told me you were going to make your payments and we were going to refinance it. And they say, oh, that's right. That's right. What are they going to say? Yeah, but we were lying and we're probably not going to. And what if we screw up? And so, you know, the psychology behind it is when you keep pitching people over and over again, you get a real feel for who you're talking to. And I used to be able to know when someone would walk into my office and I would start to take an application on them. One of the questions I would ask was this. So how much money do you make? And, you know, some people would say, I make $15 an hour. Some people would say, I make $3,000 a month. Some people would say, I make $60,000 a year. Now, the guy that says I make 15 bucks an hour almost always had bad credit. He had bad credit because this is a guy who doesn't think past an hourly wage. The guy that made $3,000 a month, he might be is 50-50. The guy that says I make $65,000 or $70,000 a year, he's probably got pretty good credit. So there were, you get to know. So I can see people raising their hand in the pitch, saying certain things, and they already have these perfect rebuttals. So these people are when they walk in that room, you're doomed. Like you can't be in a battle of the wits with a seasoned con man when you have no experience. So the people that walk in those rooms, luckily you had an intuition, you felt like something was off, you grabbed your cell phone. Most people don't do that. A lot of people, just like you said, he leaned into it. He was excited. He wanted to be rich. Everybody's driving a Lamborghini. They promised me.
Well, see, in the example you gave, you are basing your assessment of whether they're going to be a reliable creditor or not with actual data, numbers, things they say that intuit that. And when they eventually fail, which you were able to predict, it really is their own fault, right? But now imagine how much of a scumbag you would have to be to start to reverse it. And instead of the people telling you, yes, Matt, I will be able to pay. Yes, I will be able to pay. Imagine you're the one telling them, you got this, love bombing them. You can do this, you can do this. And it makes no difference to you whether they succeed or fail because you actually know that they probably are going to fail. Now imagine how much of a scumbag you'd have to be to, when they fail, tell them you just didn't work hard enough. It's your mindset. It's broken.
Yeah.
You absolutely have to be the highest level tier, morally bankrupt, scumbag person to be at a high level in one of these companies. And I say high level because I want to make the distinction. I believe most people who join MLMs, that 99%, are not bad people, are not scammers. Everyone, regardless of your level of intelligence, is susceptible to being scammed because every one of us is susceptible to vulnerability. Nobody can stop a relative dying. Nobody can stop the world pausing for 2 years. Nobody can stop emergencies that turn our world upside down. Anybody can be taken in by one of these things, but there are those, and I've highlighted some of these people in my videos. There are those who have been in it so long and are so high up, who have seen people come and go year after year, who know the numbers, who know that people lose, who know that they are scamming people, who know that they are causing suffering, who don't give a fuck because they're getting rich.
Yeah, I have no doubt about that. Oh man, I had something I was going to tell you too. I didn't want to interrupt you. Damn it.
Sorry. No, well, but let's go back even a bit further and maybe you'll remember. Another key thing with what you said in your mortgage financing analysis there is that the keyword you used is disclosure. Disclosure. With an MLM company, MLMs don't have to disclose these sort of numbers to their recruits, like simple things like an income disclosure. They always make the analogy between what they do and sort of being a franchisee. Their recruits, it's just like you're a franchisee. It's just like we're a real estate brokerage and you're one of our real estate agents. It's not the same because to be a franchisee, you get to look at books. You get to see disclosure. In MLM, you don't have to do that. And the reason for this, I'm not going to bore anyone with the boring history. Years and years ago, something called the business opportunity rule was proposed. And it basically was this rule that if passed, work from home opportunities would have to come with a one-sheet disclosure to the people who were signing up. Multi-level marketing companies realized this would probably be the end of them if this happened to them. So they lobbied congressmen and rallied their people in the industry to write to the FTC, to the government, and say, exempt MLMs from the business opportunity rule. And they were successful in doing that. And there's also little things like, one of the distinctions between being a franchisee is that your startup costs or your cost to join is more than $500. So a lot of these MLMs, the cost is actually less than 500, like, 300 or 400, just to like skirt that. So just another layer of the fraudulence there.
Yeah,
But you go ahead.
I was thinking about Grant Cardone and doing the whole telling everybody that if they didn't make 400,000, they were a loser. And he says so many just ridiculous things. It's like, like I always love that he does this whole thing on how not to own a house, how you shouldn't own your own house and you should rent and you should this. And it's like, okay, well, don't you sell houses? Like, don't you, one of the things you do is buy apartment complexes and help people buy houses, fix them up and sell them to what? Suckers? It's like he's so grossly offensive and contradictory toward what he's doing. It kills me. But hold on,
I want to help you remember what you were going to say before. Did you remember it? Was that it? The Grant Cardone thing?
Well, it was no. Well, I also remember I have somebody, when you mentioned the business opportunity, I was locked up with a guy who did a business opportunity scam.
Okay.
Very interesting scam. Look, the psychology behind this guy, it was baffling. Like he was amazingly good at sales. And it was the same types of things where, he would disclose, listen, when I walked into a room to disclose to somebody, I already had all the places you needed to have highlighted with a sticker. I kept my hand over the document the whole time, and I very quickly explained what you were signing, and I kept poking at I checked my watch, and I kept telling them that what they were signing wasn't, this isn't the final product. The final product that you will be signing is at closing, and you'll be able to review all those documents at closing. This is just a disclosure to let you know that I did tell you what you were going to be signing when you get to closing. So this doesn't mean anything. You keep telling them that doesn't mean anything. The truth in lending doesn't mean anything. These are just documents for the state. You have to sign them for the federal government. You just got to sign. No big deal. Here, sign here, sign. This says that I didn't make you get your homeowner's insurance from where you got it, right? Like I didn't tell you had to go to State Farm. You went to Allstate. They seem very benign. You make everything sound very benign. And they sign and they sign and they sign. Then, of course, they go to closing and they get a stack of documents for their mortgage, which is 12 pages long, fine print. They're not going to read that. Like it just, there were so many things that were like this. And it was the same thing with the business opportunity scam that I was telling you about, that guy. And, the big thing too is that I know, because I've talked to, I watch a podcast and I talked to a guy that researches, and I talked to Mike Wynn. Wait, why am I saying his name wrong?
Mike
Winnett. It's the same thing. It's that, they blame you. If you're not successful, it's because of you. But you're having me sell an inferior product for double what I should be selling it for, door to door. Like the whole system is rigged. It's just stupid. And I had to put up several $1,000s to get to this point. And I have to sell it higher and convince the people I'm selling it to for them to turn around and sell it. Like the whole thing is just.
Well, I mean, think of how actually impractical it is that somebody could be successful just selling shampoo out of their trunk and making $10 a bottle, $20 a bottle at best for overpriced shampoo. Like making an actual living from just the commissions of this, you would probably be the best salesman who ever lived. And then you also have to recruit people so that your commission rate, because here's the thing in these MLM companies, when you first join, the commission rate you qualify for is very low. It's the people with the higher ranks that earn the better commission. Well, how do you get to the higher rank? Well, you have people under you who are also distributors. Okay. So if I have, let's say, 10 people under me, and now instead of just a 20% commission, I qualify for a 70% commission on the product, right? So now I'm able to make 70%, but there's still higher to go. So I keep recruiting people, but wait, Marco, what about sales? I thought you're recruiting people so that your commission can be higher. So what about the sales? Well, when you sign someone up, they buy a starter kit. That counts as a sale.
Right. My sales are now based off of the starter kits.
Exactly. So, I mean, that is how these companies like quantify that. They tie the purchase of a product when you join. When you join, you have to purchase a product. That is how they disguise themselves as a legitimate network marketing, product-based, product selling-based business, and not just a money transfer Ponzi or pyramid scheme. But consider this. I'm going to ask you, because I was doing this thought experiment in my head yesterday, but you'll get this. And this is not like a trick question. What is the one, if you were a company, think any industry, any field, any company, any business, if you could only track one piece of data regarding your business, if you could only track one metric, what would it be?
I mean, it would probably
if you could,
it would be sales. I mean,
sales.
Yeah.
Sales, totally. Right?
You'll die without sales.
You'll die without sales. Any company, whether you sell cars, hamburgers, haircuts, you name it, every company must know their sales. Your sales to an actual outside market, to the public, determines everything else. How much you make. So what's your revenue? So what's our budget? So how much can we pay this guy? So what's our marketing? Which product was the most popular so we can double down in the marketing? Which product didn't do so well? Okay, let's discontinue that one or let's rebrand it and work on it. How do you know without sales? You don't. Any business without sales, without knowing its sales, would fold. Would we agree?
Right.
Very quickly it would fold if you don't track your sales. Even a little kid with a lemonade stand must know his sales. MLM companies don't know their sales. MLM companies sell the products to the people who sign up to sell the products. Once, if I'm a distributor for a company that sells shampoo, an MLM, I buy it. How did they know whether I sold it or whether it sat in my garage? They don't know. So when MLM companies report their earnings, that earnings statement is only a reflection of the product they sold to its own people.
Right.
How does it know? How does it know whether people out there in the marketplace actually want the product? They don't know. And like we agreed, any company that doesn't track its sales would fail. And these companies are doing fine. Billions in revenue. They're around year after year, some decades. Amway been around almost 100 fucking years. So there must be another way that they're making money.
Yeah, well, their sales are based off of recruiting, not sales. They don't care what the product is.
Exactly. And it's like, you know, they claim that the reason they don't sell these products in stores, they claim that the reason they don't do traditional advertising is so that they can cut out the middleman. Well, you know, I'm impersonating an MLM recruiter here. Well, you know, those big box retailers, they take a cut and then it's more expensive and that's no good. And like, you know, the advertising, well, how about we just use word of mouth? We let our recruits advertise for us. That way we can give them the money for advertising instead of giving it to the television station or the radio. That's what they say. But in truth, advertising, bless you, in truth, advertising is totally irrelevant to a company that doesn't even sell to the outside world.
Right.
So that's not the reason why. It's not because they're so generous and they want to give more money back to their workforce. It's because the workforce is the ones buying it. Why the fuck would I go and advertise to the outside world when you suckers are giving me billions of dollars a year to sign up and buy it?
I wonder what the closing ratio is when they get a group together. Like if they get 100 people together, do they sell 20 of them or 60?
It's about volume, right? Like I spoke to a woman on my multi-level misery series who was in a company called Monet for 5 years. They sell shampoo and things like this. And she told me she would cold DM 200 people a day on Facebook. And Facebook would block her from using the function because she was just spamming essentially. She could
Right.
go in Facebook jail. So it's, it's about volume. If you are
So
constantly,
if 200 a day, how many did she get after 200 a day?
I don't know her closing rate, but the point is just that it's about volume. Like you're not actually selling people on an opportunity. You're just casting a very wide net,
Yeah.
And think about this too. When the pyramid collapses, a lot of people, they get tricked over again because the next MLM company comes along and they join that one, and they'll have some riddle, some slick way of explaining why this one is
Right.
not like that one, why this one's better. Every MLM I've ever investigated has said we have the best compensation plan in the industry. Every one of them has said that. Every one of them calls the other companies that are a carbon copy a scam.
Right.
Amway is the grandfather of all MLMs. Every MLM is actually just a branch of the Amway tree. Amway is the industry. Okay. And I've been in MLM meetings where they call Amway Scamway, and they
Right.
do the exact same thing. It's all part of this like thought stopping, cognitive dissonance, brainwashing, fraud, trickery.
I remember what I was going to tell you was I acted as a scammer con man for Vice TV on a series they did. And they gave they were these little 3-minute videos. And I want to say 2 of the people were immigrants. So they didn't understand that the IRS wouldn't call you and tell you to go to Walmart and get 4 different Walmart credit cards for $1,000 and call and give them the numbers. Like they didn't understand that wasn't how it worked. Another one of the scams was, what was it? Oh, that someone had called. They called and said his mother was in a car accident. She needed surgery. She was at the hospital. She needed surgery. Or she was going to die. Like there was just no way to save her, but they couldn't do the surgery unless he had a credit card. And then they ended up figuring out how much was on the credit card. And he had like a $30,000 limit on his credit card. And he actually, the credit card company, they billed him for the whole $30,000. And he actually had the credit card company called him and verified, are you sure this is you? Like everything. He was like, absolutely. Yes. No, I need to pay for this. And they let it go through. So and I forget what the third one was. Why?
Can you just call his mom?
Yeah, that was the whole thing. It was such a rush thing. He just never ended up talking to his mother. But listen, I get it. Like it's like, the problem was that during the course of that interview, I remember the guy that was the producer was asking me, like, what do you think of these people? Like, a lot of people think that if you get scammed like this, like you deserve it. Like, what's your thought? And, you mentioned something to me, which was, that people get sick, things happen out of the blue. And I remember saying, that the problem is a lot of people think, oh, well, you've got to be stupid. But the truth is that most people that get scammed aren't stupid. Like if it makes sense, in those cases, those people didn't know how the system worked. Right. So they know that, look, if you go to the hospital and you need a surgery, they're going to do the surgery. They're not going to call you and say, well, if somebody doesn't pay for it, we're going to let you bleed to death. That's not going to happen in the United States. They're going to give you the surgery. They're going to bill you later. They're going to come after you for the money. They're going to put a lien on your house. But the truth is they are going to do the surgery. Same thing with the IRS. They didn't realize how the IRS worked.
Right.
Those people weren't stupid. They were just ill-informed. They lacked the understanding of how the system worked. But most people that get scammed aren't stupid. You know, what
Totally.
happens is they're just, like you said, they're predisposed. And a lot of times, if the scam, now I'm not talking about an MLM, I'm just talking about regular scams. If the scam makes sense, doctors, lawyers, investors, people with money, people that own their own companies will invest hundreds of thousands, if not millions, because it makes sense. The problem is, like a lot of Ponzi schemes, they make sense. What they're not counting on is the fact that it's a Ponzi scheme. Like, that may have worked if that's what they were doing with your money, but they're not. They're just spending it. You know? So I think a lot of people believe, oh, well, if you get scammed by an MLM or you get scammed by a scam, you're just stupid. But really, you're not. You'd be shocked how many people are susceptible to it.
Totally. And like in the example you gave with the hospital, your mom's in the hospital scam, what are they preying on? Your
Your emotions.
emotional, yeah, your emotion. And emotion is stronger than logic. Emotion
Right.
is stronger than facts. You know, early on, I thought I would convince people, like going back to the story with my friend, right? I told him, hey man, look at this stuff that I saw on Google. Even if I showed him what I know now, even if I showed him 99% loss rate, there's no sales to an outside market, emphasis on recruiting, even if I pointed out all these logical fallacies, they have hooked him on things that are so much more powerful than a number on a screen could be. Think of your
Right.
mom, think of your dad, think of your family, think of your dream future. What do you think is more palpable in a person who, mind you, a person who they go for two demographics, visible minority, visible disability. Look for
Right.
somebody who's vulnerable. Did you just lose someone? Is your guard already down? Are you already in a heightened emotional state where you're not thinking straight? You know,
Um,
are you a kid fresh out of high school who is
yeah, you
lost and doesn't know what they want to do? These are the
exactly.
things. They need these things. And that's why, you know, there's a lot of scams out here. There's a lot of scams out here. And almost all of them, from what I've seen, have to do with your money going from your pocket into my pocket. This multi-level marketing does that, but it does so much more and so much worse.
It's the guy. Shoot, I was going to tell you about the business opportunities guy that I told you about. He really had it down. Like, he had it, he had a great system down. Kind of forget where I was going with that, but
Let's go back. Let's rewind. I was saying they're preying on your emotion. What's more powerful?
oh, that's what he said. He said that the fear of losing out on a deal is more powerful than the fear of losing your money. He said people's fear of being that guy that invested in Apple and chose to say, you know what, Steve, I don't think this is going to work. Give me my $2,000 back and I'll give you my 30% of the company. That guy, no, but people are more afraid of being that guy than they are of losing their money. They don't want people to ridicule
Yep.
them the rest of their life. They'd rather risk their million or 100,000 or
Yep.
2,000 or whatever it is than to be that guy that missed out on the next Amway, a package. Like, I was going to make millions in Amway. Never made millions.
It's, I mean, what are stocks? Stocks are speculative, right? They go up and down in value because of what people think. We're just now on the tail end of a crypto social contagion where everyone thought that they were going to become a millionaire off of monkey pictures. And
Right.
realistically, that's not what happened. Even, scammers always adapt. Foreign exchange, crypto, NFTs, these were so popular during COVID. Everyone's locked at home. Oh, I can make money right here. So even MLMs, there was a couple of MLMs that dealt with Forex that, they claimed their products were education on Forex, but underneath it's still the same thing. And it's interesting. You mentioned the scammers over in India making somebody go buy Walmart gift cards or whatever. That's an example of an evolving scam, a new method, new tools, telephone, internet, screen sharing software that makes it look like we've got into your bank account. those scammers will always adapt, right? Scammers will always find new ways. But consider multi-level marketing is the only scam that has stayed the exact same since the very beginning with no need to adapt because it's legal,
Right.
right?
So what are the worst ones out there that you think?
It's a good question. People have asked me this question, and a lot of MLMs have definitely made the case for employing tactics that could be considered the scummiest and the most misleading and thus the worst. But I think the argument could be made that Amway is the worst insofar as Amway is the OG and it is the reason why multi-level marketing exists today. They very early on realized the power behind political influence, political lobbying, and that has its arms reach far into the future, and that's why they're still around today. You know, consider we think of pyramid schemes like one person gets 5 people, gets 5 people, gets 5 people. We can almost look at the industry in the same way. Amway spawns all these other ones who, when they get shut down, their leaders branch off and spawn other ones. So there's almost a pyramid scheme of pyramid schemes that is going on. Ronald Reagan, when he was the president, spoke at an Amway convention while he was the sitting president. Trump, before he was president, up until the year before he was president, would speak at ACN. There's a MLM called ACN conventions every single year. They paid him millions and millions of dollars. Betsy DeVos, who was Trump's Secretary of Education, she gets her last name DeVos from her husband, who is the son of Amway's founder. Her money is Amway money. So the political influence goes so high. Kamala Harris, the current vice president, her husband is a lawyer for a firm that defends MLMs like Amway, Herbalife, etc. It goes very, very deep. And, you know, I will have to get ready for the next few years of people calling me like a conspiracy theorist. But, you know, I always think of Harry Markopolos, the guy who exposed Bernie Madoff years and years before they actually got him. Nobody believed him.
They thought he was crackpot. He's
a crackpot. And I mean,
but
same
that's
thing.
The problem, like you said, with Bernie Madoff, he had done it for so long and he had so much credibility. It's the same thing with Amway. Like you said, they've gone so long, it can't be a scam at this point.
Of course. Oh, my grandma sold Amway. That's not a scam. It's part of the cultural influence. And it's sort of like going back to the very beginning, how we talked about like you could have stopped and started over, but you just went deeper and deeper into it. It's like our society has gone deeper and deeper into it. Scarface, you know, to a lot of people is a hero that represents the American dream. Jordan Belfort, same thing. But it seems like people only remember the first 2/3 of the movie where they go from rags to riches, and they don't remember the last act where the person dies or goes to jail. And people miss the point completely that Scarface was the bad guy and Jordan Belfort was the bad guy. He wasn't the hero. He was the villain. And, you know, I love those movies too. Don't get me wrong, but they've been turned into the wrong. They've been, you know, reinterpreted to be the wrong type of influence. And so, you know, yeah, Harry Markopolos, he was just a crackpot, right? You know, slavery was legal for hundreds of years. And if you had said, you know, oh, slavery, this isn't right, back in like 1800, people would have probably looked at you like, dude, this is the way it's always been. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? It is not until people, the public, the people rally together and put pressure on their governments that things change. That's the way it's always been. You know, just in the last decade of my life, I have seen gay marriage and weed become legal. Those are huge things. But yet there are still things that are legal, that are unethical. And there were things that were illegal that are ethical. You know, I think it's a good thing that weed and gay marriage have been legalized, you know? So Sam Bankman-Fried just recently was essentially running a personal piggy bank with FTX.
Yeah,
and
it was a legitimate.
It was so legit. You had so many people, so many big celebrities appearing in advertisements for it. They had FTX Arena. I mean, it's about as legit as it gets from the layperson's point of view, you know? And that's why these MLM companies also employ celebrity speakers at their events, because it adds legitimacy, you know?
So I interviewed a guy on my on my channel, and he was actually a part of an MLM, and he was from Canada. He came to LA and during and got pitched for the MLM, and then later on, whatever it was, I don't know how many years after he went through the whole process, he wrote a movie about it. Wrote a movie. He produced and acted in a movie. And it's actually, I always say this, I always say, it's not a great movie, but it actually isn't a bad movie. Does it have big stars in it? No. But it's actually not a bad movie. And especially if you watched it, like, this is a guy who gets pitched in a living room with like 8 people. Next thing you know, it's those people branch off, and then there's another kind of a meeting. Those
What's it
people branch
called?
off, and I'm sorry?
What's the movie called?
It's called All I Need.
Gotcha.
And it's on my actually I think it's on Amazon. It's on like one of these channels like Peacock or Amazon. It's called All I Need. What is his name?
I'm seeing it.
You're not seeing it?
No, I am seeing it, but I'm seeing a horror movie called All I Need, not a. Anywho, I'll find it.
Hold on. It's a scheme. Don't get caught. Blah, blah, blah. Hold on. You know what? It's punch in. Shoot. What is his name? Too. I did a. It's on my channel. I'll just look for it on the channel. Here it is. Here. Yeah, it's super interesting. I can get you the link or the movie. I know he'd be interesting to talk to, because he went through. Oh, here it is. Oh, it's All That I Need. And the name of the episode is what it's really like inside. It says Ponzi scheme.
Okay.
But it's really, you got to watch it. I think it's more of a pyramid scheme but it's literally, you're not selling anything. So it's kind of a mixture, because the whole thing is like, if you bring in money and give me money, I forget the way it's set up.
Well, look, yeah. So the Ponzi scheme is essentially robbing Peter to pay Paul. So if I present you the scheme, I tell you that you give me $10 and I'm going to return back to you $20 in X amount of time. I will give you that $20 because I went and found another few people to give me $10.
Right, which eventually it collapses.
It collapses because there's not enough new people to support paying out the old people. This is what Bernie Madoff was running. Fun fact, did you know that you actually have a better chance of success in a no product Ponzi scheme than an actual product-based MLM?
Really?
Think about it. It's very simple. In a product-based MLM, you have overhead. In a Ponzi scheme, you don't have overhead.
Right. A lot of the problem with the Ponzi schemes is that people just, they promise too big. The return, like what's his name? Like Bernie Madoff went so long because he wasn't giving outrageous returns. They were higher than average, but they weren't insane. Like Charles Ponzi is giving you 3 times your money in 90 days. Like it's outrageous.
Yeah. I mean, I think Charles Ponzi would actually be a really good like period piece movie. I've thought of this like much more down the trough, but like I would love to be involved in a movie about Charles Ponzi, the historic figure, because it's such a so applicable today. And I'm not even really a huge fan of like period pieces like that, but what was I going to search? There was, who is the man who sold the Eiffel Tower?
Oh, Victor Lustig.
Yeah, that guy, it's not really a Ponzi scheme, but that guy really, he was an OG for
Yeah,
sure.
he sold the Eiffel Tower twice.
Genius.
Yeah, he was. He also used to sell the Romanian box. You know, the Romanian box where he would sell you the box. It made money. You put a dollar bill in, or $100 bill, or 20, and you would roll it,
Hilarious.
and then it would roll in there, and you would wait, and then you had to wait like an hour or two, and then you could roll it out, and it would come out. And then two of them would come out.
Hilarious.
So he sold the box to people, and then he would show them he'd show them once how it works. They'd sit there, then they'd bring the money to the bank, and the bank would say, yeah, this is a real $100 bill. And then the person would go out and get him like $2,000 or $3,000 and come back. He'd give him the paper, give him everything. And then he had an hour or 2 hours to leave. That was why you had to wait.
Genius. Yeah,
traditional take off.
Traditional snake oil salesman, you know, put the shit back on the wagon. Let's go to the next town, do the pitch again.
Yeah, you know, he got a police officer one time, like a sheriff.
Oh, shit.
And the sheriff he got because the sheriff had stolen money that had been seized. The sheriff had stolen it and spent it. So the sheriff needed a way to recoup the money. So he convinced the sheriff he could do this if he just gave him so much money. So he gave him the money. He also, by the way, he also conned Al Capone.
Damn.
He had a bunch of, it was really interesting. Of course, he ended up dying in prison. So,
yeah,
that sucks. But
damn. Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, that thing that I said a moment ago really stunned me when I first read it, that you have a better chance of making money in a traditional Ponzi scheme. But it does make sense because there is no overhead that you would have to pay. Like, as long as you're early enough in the Ponzi scheme, you probably will get a return. And for the person running the scheme, you do want to pay your first few levels of investors back their money, because that's how you're going to access more people. You have to build that trust initially. So you have a much, much better chance doing that. Whereas if you're joining an MLM pyramid scheme, you're already too late. You know, these companies have been around for years, you know.
What was the other thing I was gonna mention about pyramid schemes? Like, I knew a guy in prison. Well, I've known a few people in prison that ran pyramid schemes, or no, I'm sorry, Ponzi schemes. And another one, I knew another guy that went 15 years. 15 years. The problem with him was he was spending so much of the money. He was outrageously spending, that when the market crashed and people started asking for their money back, you know, he couldn't pay it. So yeah, so it ended up collapsing. Had the market not collapsed, and had he not been spending so lavishly, he would have had enough to probably, because not everybody was pulling out. It was only a few people, but it was so much that he just couldn't do it.
Right. Totally. Yeah. That's what they mean by collapse, right? Is that you have to, at that point, then flee town, essentially, change your name and start again. So on the FTC website, if you just search FTC MLM on Google, you'll come to a page that says multi-level marketing businesses and pyramid schemes. So first thing to note is that they share a page. Supposedly these things are both different, but they share a page on the FTC's website. So that's step one, okay? On the web page, it says, if you scroll down a little bit, it says pyramid schemes are scams. They can look remarkably like legitimate MLM business opportunities and often sell actual products, maybe even ones you've heard of. But if you become a distributor for a pyramid scheme, it can cost you and your recruits, often family and friends, a lot of time and money that you won't get back. Right, we know this. Now, just Google Ponzi versus pyramid. It says Ponzi schemes can be easier to detect, but pyramid schemes can be hidden to make them look legitimate. Ponzi schemes simply require a cash investment. Pyramid schemes, on the other hand, need you to pay a fee or purchase products and services in order to participate and earn income. So, considering these three things, Matt, can you tell me the difference between a Ponzi scheme, a pyramid scheme, and an MLM?
Well, I mean, the product. You have a product that you're selling. Is that it?
Yep. So that's the difference between Ponzi, because a Ponzi named after Charles Ponzi is just cash. I give you $10, you give me back 100, or you give me back 20. So now, Matt, tell me, what's the difference between a pyramid scheme and an MLM? If a pyramid scheme,
I mean, I don't see a difference.
you know who also doesn't see a difference? The FTC. They have never actually been able to answer the question. There is no documentation, as far as I know, that exists, and I've looked through a lot, from the actual FTC that says, here is the difference between an MLM and a pyramid scheme.
Right. So, but the difference is that they're not going after pyramid schemes because they're just not being given the legal basis or legal jurisdiction to do it.
Basically, I mean, if you think about it like this in this way, I think about it. You have political lobbyists, right? Corporations with corporate interests. They want to protect what they do. The MLM industry has a lot of money. They give money to politicians to say, hey, wink, wink, cough, cough, don't let this bill pass, protect me, etc.
Right.
So now that government that is partially paid for by the MLM industry is now in charge of this arm of it called the FTC to tell them, hey, go after this, don't go after this. So
I was going to say, isn't that kind of what Sam Bankman-Fried was kind of aiming toward to kind
I
of
believe so.
Try and get himself in a situation where he could protect his little fiefdom?
I believe so. So, you know, the government, the FTC is run by the government. The government is at least partially influenced by the MLM companies. So I don't think that the FTC themselves are this super corrupt organization, because even if the government that's put in place is partially there because of MLM companies, the MLM companies themselves are not deciding on the budgets of the FTC, nor are they deciding which companies they go after. The FTC is not a huge department. They have many things to look at. Basically, every fraud they have to cover, and there's not enough people. The only way that MLM companies will be investigated are if people speak out and report the fraudulent income claims that they see on Instagram or Facebook or whatever to the FTC, and report the company and report their experience. You know, a lot of these people, like we talked about earlier, when they leave an MLM and they lose money, they're so shamed that they don't even want to speak out because they believe it was their fault. Why would you report? Right. Why would you report a company being a scam if you thought it was your fault that you failed?
And you scammed your friends and family out of money.
Absolutely, because now you're culpable, right?
Right.
Now you were part of it. So what are you going to do? So I had another important thing I was going to say here. Another reason why the FTC can't on their own bring cases against these companies is because a lot of the fraudulent income claims that these people are making are behind closed doors in personal meetings, in these meetings or Zoom calls that, you know, they happen in the moment and then they're gone. B, they happen on Instagram, on people's Instagram stories, which expire after 24 hours. The FTC does not have people sitting there screenshotting people's stories. But that's what I am trying to mobilize my audience to do, because many hands make light work. So if I had even 1,000 people per year target one specific company to keep track of and screenshot the posts that they saw from their friends or family who were in that company, these fraudulent claims, and send them to the FTC, I believe that company would be reprimanded. And then if the next year we do it again with another company, and on and on and on, I believe it's only a matter of time before the public pressure is so glaring that the FTC has to do something drastic.
Right. It's been a long time, but it's been
a long time. Sorry. It's been a long time, But it's been a long time with no social media. Now we have tools to catch them and provide proof and evidence. Now we have the internet to share people's stories and destigmatize and get rid of this idea of it was your fault, you were an idiot, you didn't work hard enough.
Right.
So I believe that this is a business model that won't survive when I'm 50 years old. It won't be around.
So is that what is the goal of your channel? Is that the goal of your channel, or
Yes,
just to expose them, or is it to hope to bring legislation to
long term, that is the hope. In the short term, I do have to still try to make edutainment, essentially make videos that are interesting, that inform people about what's going on and entertain them at the same time. And ask people to, everybody is affected by this. Everybody knows somebody who was in this, who was in an MLM. Everybody has a friend, a relative, or knows someone who knows someone who was in one of these companies. I truly believe that if somebody, maybe me, pointed people in the right direction and said, hey guys, changes actually can be made. Just report it. I do believe that long term, we can make change. I'll do all the legwork. I'll dive into the records of the company. I'll go to the meetings with the hidden camera. I'll put myself at risk. I'll do all that stuff. I'll put myself in the line of fire. Just help me when I ask. Help me to report whichever company it is that I'm investigating at the time. And yeah.
Well, how is your channel, like, how's it doing now? Like you had like a little sabbatical you mentioned. You've been up and running again for how many months now? 6 months?
Not even 1 month.
Oh, not even a month?
Not even a month.
That's right. You took off like 6 months.
Took off a year.
A year?
A whole year. I didn't post anything that was pyramid scheme related. I've been back now a few weeks, and like it's actually insane how drastic the spike has been. Like,
so how many videos have you put out? Just one or two? Or
I've done a couple live streams, and I've put out 2 videos. The second episode of Multi-Level Misery, it will be out by the time this is out. But I'm working on another installment of my larger series called Infiltrating a Pyramid Scheme. These are the more fleshed out, almost documentaries where I go with a hidden camera into a pyramid scheme meeting and listen directly from the source of the person presenting to try to get a picture, and I go compare the financial records and etc.
Right. Okay, well, cool. So all right. I'm good. Do you have anything else you want to say?
I just want to make the clarification. Why am I doing this? I'm totally transparent about it. It's fun. It's a blessing to be able to make money off of this type of content. So from a business standpoint, I have absolutely no shame in saying that I make money from this type of content. I think if you're doing good work in the world and helping people, you deserve to make money. And also at the real heart of it, I said those 2 things first because I know that that's what all the naysayers, or not even naysayers, just all the brainwashed pro MLM people are going to say about me. He's doing this for clout, for his YouTube channel. He's doing it to make money, etc. The real reason is because I lost my best friend because of this. And I know far too many people from doing this work who have reached out to me in messages and comments who have had the same experience, who won't talk to their parents or whose parents won't talk to them. I've talked to old women who have now been barred from seeing their grandchildren because their child is so deep in an MLM, and everything that is not pro that MLM is an enemy. And I'm doing this to prevent that type of thing that happened to me happening to more people.
Yeah, I can definitely see how it becomes kind of a cult situation. Do you interview people?
I've done a couple interviews. And I guess now I'm really getting more into the interviewing because I just started this new series where I interview former victims of MLM companies. So I guess I'm doing that a lot more regularly now that I think of it.
Yeah, it's, well, I mean, I was gonna say the intro is always frustrating. Plus, you just
Yeah.
never know where, well, I mean, in general, I mean, I didn't know you interviewed people because I've watched a couple of your videos, and it was just you talking about the different MLMs.
I
So
have
good.
I was going to say, I have one interview up on my channel with a gentleman named Robert Fitzpatrick. He's like considered the world's expert on multi-level marketing. And I have the first episode of this multi-level misery series has gone public on my channel with a girl who was in Primerica for a couple of years. So that weekly series has started. And by the time people are watching this, the second episode should be out. So yeah, getting more into it, but I always do the intro. I film it after when I'm by myself so that I don't put the pressure on myself, because you could always just slap it at the beginning when you edit,
Yeah. I listen, sometimes I nail it, sometimes I'm off.
That's fair.
It's but like I said, nobody's watching this because they think, this is a professional person. He's doing it great. He's polished. Now nobody thinks I'm polished.
Your setup looks good though. You have a good camera, obviously.
You know what? I've got a couple of those Sony Vios, the ones that Sony like designed the camera specifically for YouTubers.
Oh, okay.
So it just, you turn it on, it just runs and runs. And I've got them, they're all networked together to a switcher. I've got a whole little console. Like it's actually
sick.
It's set up very well. I just slowly put it together over the last couple of years. And at first it was, it was just held together with, bubble gum and spit. And now I'm slowly getting better and better equipment. So
Totally. So you want me to call you Matt?
Sure.
There was a real missed opportunity to not call this show Talks with Cox.
Why Talks with? Yeah, well, it was true crime.
Yeah, I feel that. But if you ever do a different show, if you ever do a more casual talk show format, that's it. You got to promise me.
Yeah, what's funny? I've thought of I would love to get like 4 guys together and just talk, like 4 interesting guys, and just talk for 2 or 3 hours, like one of those types of
right.
Have pretty much the same guys.
Right.
That's easy, and I find a lot of times I'll talk with someone, especially people that I don't necessarily think would be interesting, and the conversation just goes and goes, and we jump from one topic to another, and 2 hours go by, 3 hours go by, and you're like, wow, like that blew by, and it was really interesting. So
it'd be great, a podcast with just the whole crew is completely boring. And everyone's just like, the atmosphere of the show is just everyone feeling the pressure to keep the convo going, but nobody really wants to be there. That I would watch that. That would be a good show.
What was it? My buddy told me. Listen, my buddy told me this one, who is a friend of mine, and he's always got these ideas. He never does anything with them, but and he took the idea from another podcast he was watching, and the podcast was like, what if you had some kind of a restaurant type of situation where you wire the whole, the table, and you invited people in, and then they just sat there and ate dinner and talked, and you just videoed it. Or maybe it was just 4 friends and they talked, and there was different groups, like twice a week, it was a different group of people, and you interview, or you did the whole podcast, recorded it, and then just put it up.
Do the people at the restaurant know they're being recorded?
Yeah, they know you're being recorded, and they know it's going to be posted. So it's
just a podcast, but with more clanking and fork sounds and more expensive.
Maybe it's just drinking. Maybe it's
okay.
Drinking.
No, well, that exists. Drink Champs.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, there's a podcast called Drink Champs where they do that.
Or is it different people every time?
It's the same hosts, but different person they bring in to interview every time. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I think this way he was saying like there is no host.
Just let people wing it. Yeah.
Yeah. They just come in. You got 2 or 3 interesting couples. They sit down, they start talking. Oh, what do you do? Oh, I do this. I do. Oh, yeah. And they just have a 6-hour conversation. I mean, free content. You just have to record it and, just change the cameras, put it up.
I think that'd be good for TikTok. Like you get a lot of bites, you'd get a lot of clips. I don't know if if you'd have like a coherent hour-long episode, but for sure for TikTok, you could kill that.
Yeah, you'd be all over the place, like most
Yeah.
conversations. So
I was
I'm
Go
sorry, go
ahead.
ahead.
I was just gonna say, but like as a sidebar, I checked out your TikTok, and I think your content would really kill if you just posted like podcast clips, like sort of like the Andrew Tate method of you posting. Like if you have an hour-long podcast, or I don't know how long your typical podcasts are, but like Mike Dowd, for example, that episode did really good for you on YouTube. If you just like took the coolest moments from that, you could probably get 10, 20 clips from that one interview for TikTok, and one of them would crush, especially if you post on all three of those platforms that allow that type of vertical content to blow up: Instagram Reels, YouTube Shorts, TikTok. And you had 20 pieces of content. That's essentially 60 posts. You'd crush.
Yeah, we did that.
Oh shit. Okay.
Yeah, the channel, it went up to about 60,000 subscribers. I had several videos that had 1 million, 2 million, the TikToks. And then after it was up for about 4 months, 5 months, and then we got so many strikes, they eventually just took the whole channel down.
Oh, because of the subject matter?
Honestly, I wish I could say I was 100% positive of what it was, but a lot of the videos, like half the videos were completely, in my opinion, they were benign. And we may have been talking about a bank robber, how he robbed a bank or something, but this is someone telling their story. And it wasn't a lot of cursing. It was, like if you mention a gun, or if you do mention violence, or if you mention, and a lot of those had that. And the guy I had running it for me, he was like 19 years old, and he just couldn't understand that's it was like, hey, we keep getting these violations. And then one time they didn't let us post for 10 days. They build up to that. And then a month later, bam, they just took the channel down.
Dang. So that TikTok you have now is not even the original TikTok?
No.
Fuck.
No. Because I got frustrated, and he's frustrated.
Sure.
He kind of disappeared. Like, I think he thought he was scared, like thought I was mad or something, which I wasn't. He disappeared. And then like a month or so later, he came back. He's like, hey, I'm ready to, I'm sorry, man. I'll start another channel. And I said, okay, well, if you want to start one, that's fine. And then he disappeared again. And he's 19. And
yeah, gotta find a new kid.
Yeah.
There's kids out there that somewhere, they might not even be in the US, that'll chop clips. But yeah, I mean, they just you gotta play the game of TikTok and not use any of
I agree.
those words,
The other funny thing about that, now that we're on the subject, is that I've had another group, and this happened with this kid, one kid, and another guy, two guys that said, hey, I'll do your content. They gave us a price, then they switched the price. Now the problem with the original kid that helped me, I was like, look, here's what I'll do for you. We'll pay you this much, and I'll take, once it blows up, I'll take you to Podfest, because I'm going to Podfest. It's for YouTube and for podcasters. I'm like, I'll take you there. I'm going to do a speech there. And I was like, I'll talk about how you have helped, blow up my channel or get me a bunch of subscribers, that sort of thing. And he wasn't even interested. No, I don't really want to do that. Like, he's basically like a 19-year-old. He lives at home. He wants enough money to take out his girlfriend. I mean, nice kid, but a lot of kids, they just don't want to, work. They don't want to do anything. They don't want to build anything. They don't.
Yeah, totally. There's definitely a social contagion of laziness, but you got to sift through the herd to find the gems,
Yeah. So you're in Canada.
I'm in Canada. I'm in Alberta, west coast.
Okay. West coast of Canada? I don't even think of anything over. I can't.
So you would know like Vancouver, like British Columbia. So I'm one province or state to the right of that. So yeah, British Columbia is right on it's the westernmost province, right on the water above. If you're looking at the Canada above the US on the map, above sort of California, and then going over to the right, Alberta.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll check it out.
Yeah. You heard of the Edmonton Oilers? The hockey team, Wayne Gretzky?
I'm not like
There you
I'm
go.
sorry, I'm not a sports guy.
That's fair. That's fair.
So okay, so were you born in Canada?
I was born here. Yep.
All right.
Yep. I'm Canadian. I'm Canadian.
What made you born there, raised there? Did you go to college?
I did 1 year of just general like business elective classes, basically at a university here. I didn't want to go. I wanted to go to school for audio engineering at a sort of like technical college to get a certification for that. But my parents, after initially agreeing, sort of changed their mind and forced me to go the more traditional route. I didn't really have a choice. It was either you go to school for what we want you to go for, or you don't live here and you go figure it out on your own. And I, at that time, did not have the resources to figure it out on my own. So I sort of split the difference by going, but I flunked I think a good chunk of my classes, and I just sat in the back of the class most of the time watching like tutorials on my laptop about audio engineering. And then after that first year, I was just working jobs and ended up working at a recording studio as an audio engineer. So sort of they put an obstacle in my way, but I found a way around it.
Is that how long ago was that? Like, is that when you started your channel or?
No, so that was 2014, 15. I graduated high school in 2014. So I know you're probably thinking, oh, he's so young. I graduated, but you're young too. You don't look to be old. You don't look to be older than like 38, 39. How old are you?
53.
You're 53? Holy
Yeah,
fuck.
but I've had a lot of work.
Have you actually?
Yeah.
Holy shit. Because you're in good shape. You got a good hairline. Is your hairline original?
No.
Okay, mine isn't either. I had the what's it called? Hair transplant. They took they took the
hair graft
follicles
from the back of the head.
They took the follicles from the back. They put them here in the front because I had like the reverse widow's peak, where like it wasn't that I was balding. It was just like the pattern of my hair, and other people have this where like, you know, some people's hair goes down to the point.
Yeah.
Mine was normal, but then had like a right here would go up a little bit. So nobody ever really noticed it, but I was bothered by it. So it was a very small graft. Like it cost me 2,000 Canadian dollars. It was not a big operation. So they did it. And then recently, despite doing that, I've just been wearing my hair. I've just been shaving my head. I've just been wearing it short.
I mean, you'd never tell. Like it looks great. I would never have thought that.
Yours looks good too. I would only guess that yours wasn't the original because I know from my experience what the before and after might look like. But yours looks crispy.
Yeah, I listen. I'll walk through a crowd and be like, that guy.
Yep.
That
yep.
guy.
Yeah.
That guy.
Yeah. This like the hairline is like men's version of the BBL. You know, like going to Turkey and getting the BBL. Like that's for sure. Because there's not as much we can do.
I had 2 surgeries.
What'd you do?
I had 2, but one was $7,000. The other one, they were both $7,000, and I'd like to get a third. Yeah, I mean, even though everybody's like, no, it's in, but to me, it's a little thin. You know, like it's a little thin. Even I mean, I understand it looks, natural, but I'd like to get a third one. But I did these before this must have been 20 years ago. I did this when I was on the run.
Okay.
I was on the run for 3 years from the Secret Service, and I got the hair, I got a nose job, I got I got a mini facelift, liposuction.
Oh wow.
I did everything. Like I was, prison wasn't part of my plan, but
Right. Well, props to you, man. It looks all the work that you've had done looks natural. Like I would have just guessed that you were a young guy. You don't look like an older guy that's had a bunch of work done, in my opinion.
Well, that's good.
But also consider this. You said you wanted to have the third for your hair. I think it might look more uncanny valley if you are like say 60, but you have a perfect flowing head of hair. Like some thinning might actually look more,
more realistic, like more natural.
because if you're 70 and you have perfect hair or perfect other features, that's just like, it might be unnerving to the
What's like
person's
Sylvester
eye.
Stallone?
I'm trying to think of how he looks now.
Oh, there's a new series with him. He's like a retired mobster or something, and
Of course.
but his hair is so thick and black, and it's just like, come on, it's so like he's in his mid 70s.
Fuck. Let me look what Sylvester Stallone looked like 2022. Sylvester Stallone 2022. You know who's doing it right, in my opinion? Like, I really, not to say that people like Arnold and Sylvester Stallone aren't doing it right, but I really respect like the Jack Nicholson, Al Pacino way of doing it. They're like, fuck it, I'm 80, I'm fat, I'm gonna eat a hot dog, fuck it.
Yeah, but listen, I came out of prison, 3 years ago. I need to get a girlfriend. I need to start a career. Like, it's not like I've got a wife I've had for 10 years or 15 years and 3 kids. Like, I'm starting my life over. Like, I've got to put some effort into it.
Fair enough, dude. So I'm very curious about this. So if you don't want to go into this, because I know your audience probably already knows your story, but maybe you can cut this out, but I would just still like to know, like, what is that background? You were in prison for 13 years?
Yeah.
Okay, so in Florida.
Well, I mean, it's a federal, like, I mean, we have states, you have states, but we have states, and then we have the federal government. So the federal government indicted me in multiple different jurisdictions.
I see.
And then I went to prison. I was in Florida, but I could have been in California or Nevada or, wherever. I could have been anywhere, but I happened to be in Florida. I got lucky. They put me in Florida, close to one of the jurisdictions that I was indicted out of.
I see.
I was actually sentenced in Georgia. And I have several indictments that they kind of put together and hit me once. And I went to a prison in Florida. Luckily, I was close to my family there.
So are you open about this, or do you not want to get into?
No, listen, I talk about it all the time.
Okay, so why did you? What did you do? I
mean, the short version is that it's funny. I was just thinking, like, Colby will probably take this and move it to the back. But the short version is that I owned a mortgage company, and it's like I started doing a little bit of fraud. Somebody comes in with a W-2 that they made $45,000 last year, so they can't qualify for the house they want to buy. So what do? If it said 52,000, they could get the house. So I changed the numbers to 52,000. I cut and paste it, put it together, send it in. It doesn't get caught, and the loan goes through. So I got more and more imaginative. Eventually, I end up getting caught. I get caught, and I lose the mortgage company. And instead of doing the right thing and saying, "Hey, I'm going to start over," I was on federal probation. Instead of being like, "Hey, I'm gonna start selling used cars, or I'm going to go work at Walmart, or just do a regular thing," I decided I was going to start doing a much larger fraud. And so what I did was I started making synthetic identities. And you know what a synthetic identity is?
Is that like a fake ID?
It's kind of like fake identity, but what I did was, which was unique, was I actually figured out how to get our Social Security Administration to issue Social Security numbers to people to basically children that don't exist. I would then get credit cards in their name, build a credit profile, and now I've got somebody who has like a 750 credit score. So on paper, he looks real. I then figured out how to get like an ID in that person's name. And then I started buying houses in those names, and I would record the value of the houses at a much higher sales price. So I took an area that was selling for around, let's say 50 or 100,000. I drove up the prices, and I borrowed like $11.5 million over the course of 18 months. Well, eventually I got caught. Well, a couple friends got caught, and they worked with the basically like a task force. They handed that task force to the FBI. They came to arrest me, and I took off on the run. I was on the run for 3 years. I was on the run for 3 years. I borrowed another $3.5 to $4.5 million while on the run. And I had like passports. I've had 24 passports issued by the State Department, U.S. State Department. I've had 27 driver's licenses. I've had over 50 identities and borrowed another, whatever, $3 or $4 million. And then eventually I get caught after 3 years and I get sentenced and I go to prison. I ended up doing 13 years. But,
Fuck.
But when I was in prison, I started writing guys' prison stories, like true crime stories. So, I start writing all these guys' stories, and I figured when I got out, I'd try and do some kind of a podcast or something. And so that's a very short version of what led me to start this channel.
Right.
And I still do that. I still write stories, and I've optioned a bunch of my stories, well, not a bunch, but several. And I'm working on getting some of them turned into documentaries. And that's what I do now. I do that. I do this. I paint.
Hell
and I
yeah,
still
man.
write.
So, I mean, obviously, like that's something that could sort of tie into what we can talk about later with my thing
Right.
is like you talked about how after that initial fraud, like I don't know the laws too well, but I'm guessing after that initial mortgage company fraud, like if you had just owned up to that, like the punishment probably wouldn't have been too severe. Like you probably wouldn't have even done time, right? Like a lot of that could be chalked up to like clerical error, the inputting of incorrect numbers, right? Like it wouldn't have been the 13 years that you got from,
No.
you know what I mean?
When I first got caught, I got probation.
Right.
Like I
So
should have done something else. Instead, I kept committing fraud.
totally. Well, that definitely, have you heard of the hedonic treadmill? This philosophy, the hedonic treadmill is like in the pursuit of hedonism and more material good, material wealth, you will fall down the rabbit hole of the never-ending pursuit of more. So
Yeah.
maybe you've seen that cartoon where the guy on the bike, he's looking at the guy in the car saying he wishes he had a car. He wishes he had a car. The guy in the car is looking at the guy in the nicer car saying he wishes he had the nicer car. The guy in the nicer car is looking at the guy with the helicopter saying he wishes he had the helicopter. And the guy in the helicopter saying he wishes he had a yacht.
Yeah.
So, there's always this strive for more. And I think that is at least in what I do in my experience, that it is now part of our Western culture, right? Think of these popular icons, Scarface, Jordan Belfort, Wolf of Wall Street, right? Like the pursuit of just like excess is almost
Yeah. Jordan. Yeah.
like it's almost virtuous now, where it's like you must be like that is a measure of one's value or
Yeah.
whatever,
I also think of like, Grant Cardone. Like I saw a video the other day where he was talking to a crowd and he was saying like, if you make less than 400,000, you're a loser. Like really? $400,000? If you make 380,000, you're a loser? Like I just, every time I see that guy, my skin crawls. I think he's just such a scumbag.
I agree. Well, Grant is telling people that if they make less than 400,000 or whatever, they're a loser because he's about to offer them the thing for $700 that can teach them how to make 500,000. So, I
Right.
mean, but
Yeah,
shout out to Grant Cardone, I guess.
I was going to say, eventually, someone with that mentality, I think eventually that will catch up with him and he's going to be indicted for something. I mean, there's just no way that you're that brazen and it doesn't ultimately catch up to you. He's already been investigated multiple times,
Yeah.
So.
I'm not too educated on the Grant Cardone rabbit hole. I'm sort of scared to pull back the curtain on that one. But yeah, man, at least in your experience, I think, I mean, tell me what you think. Do you think that played a part? The pursuit for more sort of made you feel invincible, and that's why you didn't just sort of start over, like you said?
Yeah, I had an all or nothing attitude, and definitely I thought I kept, when I first did it, it was because I did it and I thought I didn't want to, like literally I was going under. I mean, we're talking about like I'm several car payments behind. My mortgage is behind. Like I bet everything on being a mortgage broker. And my first loan that it's going to close, I'm going to make $3,500. I'm going to close this loan. And suddenly the girl, my client had a 30-day late on her rental app or her rental verification of rent. So I whited it out, and my boss told me to do it. So I thought, I just need to get ahead. If I could just get everything caught up. But then I got caught up. And then I thought if I could just get this much money, I would be okay. And then I thought, and then even when I got caught and I got caught and I ran another scam and I started making money. It was never enough. 100,000 in the bank wasn't enough. 1 million wasn't enough. 2 million. If you had 3 million, and I would be good. It kept getting worse and worse. And the problem in my mind, I always think to myself, I realize now that it just wasn't the money. The money wasn't the issue. It wasn't that I don't feel like I was chasing money because I had money. I just think I just wanted everybody to think I was successful and smart.
Yeah,
and,
totally.
It was just arrogance. It was just arrogance and pride.
Yeah. And it's, I'm not a psychotherapist or a psychologist or anything like that, but, I've read a lot about sort of this pursuit and why we have it in our culture. And I think from my understanding, a lot of it is like stemming from like a sense of lack from childhood, whether it was our parents' approval, maybe you had strict parents. Like with me, my dad is an immigrant and very traditional, and sort of growing up, I felt that the things that I saw my friends at school doing, the relationships they had with their parents, where it was just like, I remember talking to a girl in 5th grade, 6th grade. She didn't do good on a test. And I was so scared for her. I was like, oh my God, your dad's going to fucking kill you. She was like, no, he's not. I was like, what do you mean? She's like, well, I tried my best. I was like, you white kids got it made, because I'm about to go home and never leave my room. So I think that definitely, at least in my experience in my life, when I became an adult, played a role, because I remember too, when I was like 19, saying if I just had $10,000, I could make it last. Like I could invest it wisely. And then fast forward to when I was like 23, 24, I was working a really good job and I was saving money, and I had $30,000 saved. And I was just like a piece of shit. I was just lazy, playing PlayStation all day, drinking Starbucks, hanging with my girlfriend. Oh, let's watch a new Netflix series. Like, let's start a new series. So I've declared hood bankruptcy a few times. Hood bankruptcy, when you sell your PS4. I had a PS4, sold it when I needed money. And then when I was up again, I bought another PS4. And then when I was down again, I sold the PS4 again. And so for the past few years, I have been able to afford a PS4, and I have resisted the temptation, because at this point it seems like a bad omen. But that's a very it's very cool for me to hear from your point of view, because you were doing this hedonistic pursuit for more on such a grand scale, that it's really refreshing and interesting to hear the perspective of somebody now who's on the other side of it. So I wanted to ask you, like when you left prison, you said you got out 3 years ago. You had this plan for you wanting to do, true crime, tell stories, podcasts, and whatever opportunities came through that pipeline. But when you first actually came out, how did you sustain yourself? Because I'm guessing you would have to register as a felon, right? So when you got out, how did you actually make money? And also, were you in debt? Did you have to pay like some sort of restitution?
Well,
I'm
I
curious to hear
owe
about that.
6 million. So, I have to make payments every month, but I'm on probation. You don't like registered, but if somebody
Okay.
were to pull my, if you were to pull your record or anything, that would probably come up. But I mean, when I went to a halfway house for about 6-7 months, and I worked for a friend of mine who owned a gym. So I worked there for 7 months. Then really, I've never worked anywhere since then. Like it literally, as soon as I got out, I was painting, doing paintings, for I paint paintings. And I ended up doing a podcast with this guy here named Danny. He runs a podcast called Concrete on YouTube with a K. And it got within 3 months, it got 1 million views.
Oh, wow.
I told my story over the course of a month, over the course of 2 hours, I told my story. And it's funny that you mentioned your parents. I talk about my dad. My dad was he's an alcoholic. and he was extremely, you know, just disappointed in me. Like I wasn't the son he wanted. You know, he wanted, I think he wanted somebody that played football and, you know, was a tall and athletic. And I was, you know, I'm 5'6", like I'm not, and, you know, and I'm not super athletic. And I have a learning disability. So I wasn't getting straight A's in high school, you know, and he very quickly realized, oh, he's not going to be anything. He can barely read.
Yeah, man.
He's not going to be nothing. So he, you know, and then of course he's getting drunk and said horrible things. And, you know, so, you know, there was that whole added bonus of not wanting to be a disappointment, because when I owned the mortgage company, I was like, he was amazed how much money I was making. Then I started buying houses and flipping houses. He was like, my God, I never thought this kid would be anything. So the idea that I was going to, you know, claim bankruptcy and move into his spare room, no, I wasn't going to do anything to avoid that. So, but, you know, when I got out of prison, I did Danny's show, I did the podcast, and then or Concrete, and then I did Valuetainment with Patrick Bet-David. Then I did Soft White Underbelly is
I'm familiar with that. Yeah.
Yeah, I did that one. I did Vlad TV.
Okay.
So, you know, I did a bunch of these podcasts that are, you know, big time podcasts. And so, you know, I then started my channel. You know, I was hoping to have a really good setup, but I couldn't afford it. I couldn't afford the setup I have now then. So I just kind of started posting videos of me. And then I kind of put together kind of a makeshift, you know, little setup with this guy, with Colby, the guy that runs the channel. And then we just started, this was about 2 years ago, we just started posting videos. And so it did okay. I kind of feel like I missed the wave. Like I had a huge wave when I was doing all those podcasts, but you know, there's a lot of interest and I didn't have a channel yet. So, you know, when the wave started coming down, that's when I came in and started my channel. So, you know.
Well, you know, all the content, every piece of content is new if you've never seen it before. So there's nothing stopping you from taking the clips of the appearances you did and catching a new wave using TikTok, Reels, Shorts. So I think there's still definitely a way forward, but I definitely hear you.
Yeah, I feel like I would have, but you know, I don't know. I would have probably had a lot more subscribers, but it's irrelevant. I'm still, you know, I feel like I'm doing great. I'm super happy. You know, I pay my bills every single month. I pay my restitution. I live in a nice house in a great neighborhood. I have a brand new car. I have a gorgeous girlfriend. You know,
Yeah.
I'm thrilled with the way things are going. I've got a bunch of my true crime stuff has been optioned and they're doing well. So, you know, it's like everything's moving along. It's going well. And so I'm happy with that.
Yeah, bro. And you know, what you said a moment ago, I think is much more significant than somebody watching this might pick up on. Like you said, you feel like you maybe missed the wave. I think even just from hearing the short bit of your story that you've told me, the biggest hurdle that you've overcome is not getting trapped in this I shoulda, coulda, woulda.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so that's that is really, really good. And I wanted to make a mention too of, you mentioned about your dad, you know. I listened to this audiobook last year called The Way of the Superior Man. And it's basically a bunch of very short chapters that sort of give you like you know how in like The Art of War, it's not really like a novel. It's just like different tidbits of wisdom.
Right.
There was one chapter that came on while I was driving, and it's like chapter 4 or whatever, live as though your father were dead.
Right.
And it just hit me like a ton of bricks. And I was like, man, just that phrase, live as though your father were dead, had me unpacking so much stuff in my mind about like my motivations and my personality and why I do the things I do and why I think the way that I think. And that was a big key for me, you know, and it made me really look at everybody. You know, everybody was a baby at one point. Everybody was a child. And so in that sense, everyone is innocent. In that sense, everyone, no matter what crime they've done, unless it's the rare case where they actually had like a issue with their brain chemistry where they don't have emotions or whatever. Most people didn't start that way. They became the person that did the thing that maybe wasn't so good. So yeah, I've been trying to do a lot of that myself in my own life and free myself of this pressure to live up to somebody else's expectations and just do the right thing, you know. So it's really cool to hear that.
Yeah, I mean, you know what that just reminded me of, you know, Jordan Peterson. I heard him say one time that, and I forget where he quotes where he got this, where somebody said that, you know, you can't truly be a man until your father is dead.
Right.
You know, and I thought I was, you know, like, you know, that, okay. Yeah, I didn't, you know, I hadn't thought about it like that. That, you know, you'll always be a boy to somebody, to your father, I guess.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So I have a question for you. So let's.
Sorry, I've totally hijacked your show, and I'm asking too many questions. I apologize.
No, it's fine. I think Colby will either, you know, he'll move it around. Well, you know how you look at the analytics.
Sure.
I think my listeners are tired of my story. Like they've heard it 1,000 times.
Cut this whole thing out.
What he'll do is he'll probably just take it and put it in the back.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to leave the link to Marco's YouTube channel in the description box. So check out his channel and subscribe, obviously. Also, do me a favor, and if you like the video, subscribe to this video, hit the bell, leave me a comment, share the video, do all the things, hit the like button. I never say hit the like button. I don't know why, but hit the like button. I appreciate it. I appreciate you guys watching, and thank you very much. I will see you.